Hi, I'm Sheba, and the topic that I chose to focus on today is discrimination in the workplace. The reading that I decided to focus on today is Banging on a Locked Door: The Persistent Role of Racial Discrimination in the Workplace. This reading outlines important aspects on discrimination that takes place in the workforce. This can be due to advantages whites have and the disadvantages to African American people in the workforce. It indicates an idea on how distinct people of color are treated in the workplace, the power whites have in the workplace against people of color. For example, whites have power and control. They are able to lead businesses, and in comparison to African American people who are just treated as smaller and as employees. The way African Americans lose out on opportunities and the ability to work their desired field of study is another example. Moving on to key points in the reading. Discrimination in the workforce happens based on a person's race, gender, or age. These are a few qualities that companies look at, but in the hiring process for African Americans, discrimination happens based on their credit scores, the person's appearance, criminal records, or even their employment status. These qualities are very important when it comes to a company's hiring process because they look upon who they want and what they look like. Now that we have looked at a few key points on African Americans' hiring process facing discrimination, we're going to look at African Americans' perspective. They lose out on employment opportunities to work to their ability. This is an issue because they work hard consistently, but they aren't given chances that they deserve. 100,000 African Americans have unfair practices that limit their abilities to participate in the workforce. They lose out on the ability to work in a space where they feel safe and respected. This also affects their career mobility. For example, working leadership roles, having power over a business. These are two examples of things that African American people want but aren't given the opportunity to have. Now, focusing on whites' advantages in the workforce is very distinct in comparison to African Americans' disadvantages. Whites have more opportunities to gain employment easily in comparison to African Americans. They make more money, higher wages, and finding employment with a low post-secondary degree is no issue for them. Opportunity to lead leadership roles is a common issue due to African American people not giving the same opportunities in spite of having similar qualities. African American disadvantages. African Americans can have a higher post-secondary degree but a lack of job opportunities. They have no privileges in career mobility to lead an extraordinary leadership role and have power over a business. They are paid much lower than whites, low wages, and are unemployed at high rates, or in other words, a high percentage of African Americans being unemployed. This dictates that a high percentage of whites are employed in comparison to African Americans who are unemployed. This is also an issue because not many people are given the same opportunities as whites, even with the similar qualities and skills they have. African Americans are likely to work in occupations with a lower status. This is an issue because they have a lot of experience, many skills, and a high post-secondary degree. Racial profiling is another issue, but I will be speaking upon racial profiling later in this presentation. Pre-employment discrimination is an example of a situation where people can be discriminated prior to joining a workplace. This can be through their name, race, identity, credit scores, etc. Employment application process is sometimes processed through stereotypes, prejudices, and biases. This is very effective to African Americans. Businesses may say that they aren't employing after seeing a person's appearance because it doesn't fit their expectations. For example, race, gender, or age. This is an issue because people aren't given the opportunity to work in a workplace because they're being misjudged. The foundation's approach that I felt that was relative to this topic was social exclusion. This topic has a lot to offer in spite of understanding how people are socially excluded in the workforce and the way it affects them. This causes people to lose out on the opportunity to work to their extent in a field where they know they have the ability, but they aren't given the opportunity to do so. Now, coming back to the topic racial profiling, this topic is basically a situation where it decreases chances of people entering the workforce. People are judged for their appearance rather than for what they can offer. Every stage of employment process can be affected. This includes applying, interviewing, hiring, compensation, promotion, and race proves to be the factor that cannot be equalized by education, skills, experience, ambition, or class. So, racial profiling is a situation where people aren't given the opportunity to work in a workforce, even with the qualifications and skills they have. This is because people are being judged for their appearance rather than what they can offer, as mentioned, and this makes them lose out on opportunities to work to their extent. Now, relating social exclusion in relation to racial discrimination, social exclusion is known to be a way of determining the equal rights and services all people should be provided, and finding ways to offer people social equality. It dictates the lack of resources, rights, goods, and services people don't have access to that should be available for all people. People lose out on opportunities that all people should have the right to due to social exclusion. Now, understanding what social exclusion is, it's clear that people aren't always accepted, even in spite of the qualities they have or what they can bring to the table, whether it is their skills, post-secondary degree, past volunteer or job experiences, etc. This will not benefit a person of color in comparison to a person that is white who has these qualities. The advantages of being white, they are given more opportunities due to their appearance and background. So finally, criticism. So the criticism that I have is the lack of diverse leadership positions in the business, the unacceptance of African American workers in spite of their backgrounds, the judgment from businesses, pre-employment being a massive issue because it doesn't give the opportunities for people in the hiring process, even though they have so much to offer with their qualifications and past experiences. And finally, racial profiling, because it is offensive and people misjudge due to past traditions they follow.